before this starts, to keep my sanity, I simplified the humans, so those little balls are hands. Please don't bully me about them. Romeo and Juliet stars Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet, who are the heirs of two feuding households. Skipping through the beginning of the play, which is setting up the feud, Lord Capulet decides to hold a ball. He hopes that his family friends will come, so he gives a list of names to a servant who can't read and just says, "Go read it, lol." The servant, who can't read, goes anyways. He meets Romeo somewhere and goes, "Excuse me, sir, I can't read. Could you read this for me?" So Romeo goes, "Oh, hell yeah, I can, buddy." He sees the name of the person he loves, Rosaline, on the list. This makes Romeo and Co. decide to go to the ball they weren't invited to. But it's okay, since masks exist. Romeo and Co. arrive at the ball, and on the way, Mercutio got really angry about dreams and started ranting. It's not really plot important, but he talks a lot. Anyways, when they get there, Romeo searches for Rosaline. "Oh, my girlfriend!" She's not his girlfriend. "Must find my love and hold her hand." Maybe. But he gets distracted by a 13-year-old who is just too hot. He approaches her, and the banter begins. After an awkward conversation, they kiss. But oh no, Romeo has a mask on, and she doesn't know it's Romeo. And also, Romeo just doesn't recognize her somehow. They each go and ask Juliet's nurse, who is pretty much just a maid with a fancy name since she raised Juliet, who the other person is. The nurse goes, "Oh, that's, the other house's name. Lol, cue sadness on both parts." Now we know that the two heirs are in so much love. The posse that came with Romeo are looking for their bro, but he's already gone and is hanging out in the Capulet orchard right outside of Juliet's room. The bros continue the search for their bro. Meanwhile, Juliet goes onto her balcony and starts talking out loud about her forbidden love and how she doesn't really care what house he's from. Romeo pops out from behind a tree and goes, "I love you too, baby, let's get married." And Juliet, after a little bit of hesitation, agrees to love Romeo back. The next scene opens with Friar Lawrence in his cell talking about something or another. Romeo enters and asks for the monk to wed him and his child bride. He agrees, hoping it'll stop the feud between the houses. Romeo finally is reunited with his bros as they panic since he's been gone for a long time. When they see Romeo, they start making fun of him. This goes on for a while until the nurse appears. The bros that were making fun of Romeo decide to make fun of this old woman instead. Romeo manages to persuade his bros to leave, and then he discusses his marriage to Juliet with the nurse. The nurse is understandably upset because she was called names, but she still agrees to accept the marriage between the two. She returns to the Capulet house to give the marriage details to Juliet. Juliet waits impatiently for the nurse to come back, and when she does, the nurse teases Juliet and doesn't tell her the details at first. The nurse does give in and tells her, and they prepare for the secret wedding. Romeo and Juliet get married the following day, and nothing too exciting happens. The bros return and are hanging outside. Tybalt, Juliet's cousin, appears and is bitter about them going to the cool Capulets only party. Romeo appears and is excited about having a hot child bride, while Tybalt is throwing a tantrum. Mercutio decides he should stretch his sword muscles and starts to fight Tybalt. It starts off sort of playful, but then Mercutio gets stabbed. He plays it off and then dies dramatically due to blood loss. Romeo, angry about his bro's death, goes and fights Tybalt. Tybalt dies. Juliet, hearing that Romeo killed Tybalt, is understandably distraught. She consults the nurse and they grieve together. Romeo is now being kicked out of Verona. "That's not fair, he killed my bro, it was totally illegal." Nobody listens to him. The nurse enters the room where Romeo and Friar Lawrence are fighting and joins the conversation. To get over the death of Tybalt, Lord Capulet decides it's time to marry Juliet off to Count Paris. Juliet does not like this. Nobody listens to her. Juliet and Romeo meet once more before he leaves to Mantua. They get all lovey-dovey before he leaves. The nurse and Juliet's parents enter. They discuss the marriage. Juliet does not tell him she is already married. Juliet goes to talk to Friar Lawrence and runs into Paris on the way. They have an awkward conversation and she enters the monk's cell. She breaks down and tells him she wishes to kill herself. The friar pulls a vial of magical fake death potion out and gives it to her, telling her what it does and that he'll send a letter to Romeo with the fake death plan. Juliet reluctantly agrees. Lord Capulet is very excited for his daughter's wedding when she returns from her visit with the friar. She apologizes to Capulet for her behavior up until now. She heads to her bedroom. Juliet dismisses everyone that comes to her chamber and talks to herself for a long time, debating whether or not she should take the magic death potion. She ultimately decides to and hopes the plan goes well. The morning of the wedding arrives. The Capulet family is ecstatic. Lord Capulet orders the nurse to awaken Juliet. The nurse goes and attempts to wake up the dead Juliet. However, Juliet is dead. The nurse screams and everyone enters the room. "Oh no, she's dead. We need a funeral. To the tomb we go." In Mantua, Romeo's brother arrives and tells Romeo the news about Juliet. Romeo rushes back to Verona to see Juliet one last time. He also scurries to an apothecary and buys some poison so he can die beside his child bride. Soon after all of this goes down, Friar John, who I haven't talked about yet, he's a fellow monk, goes to Friar Lawrence and is like, the letter didn't make it. Friar Lawrence panics. Paris goes to the tomb to mourn, but Romeo arrives and, Paris is killed. Romeo rushes into the tomb and monologues to Juliet's corpse. He then takes the poison he bought from the apothecary. Juliet wakes up almost directly after this and is like, oh no, my husband, and she starts monologuing. She then whips out a dagger and stabs herself in the heart. Everyone arrives later and figures out everything. A joint funeral is held for the both of them, and Prince Aeschylus is like, see what happens when you fight, you idiots? Thus concludes Romeo and Juliet.